Hey guys, I hope everybody's having a fantastic day. Whether you're watching this in the morning, in the afternoon, or in the evening, I'm glad you're here. Today, I'm going to talk about some Smedium sized knives. That comes from a term I heard Christine, Women Carry Knives, use when she talks about not a small, not really a medium, kind of put the two together. It's a smaller, medium-sized knife. So, as I told you guys, I've kind of been looking through my collection with a different lens, trying to come up with some combinations of knives that fall in categories that I can wrap my head around. First thing I want to do is thank every one of the channel members for supporting the channel. Thank you all more than you know. And thank all of you who come through to watch my content, to comment on my content. Whether you're inclined to subscribe and hit that bell notification, that would really help. But if you like to just come through and watch the videos, I want you to know I appreciate it. The first knife in the Smedium category, what I've done is I've done a top 10 of the Smedium knives in my collection. This is not by any means going to be perfect. It's subjective to the way my hand considers a Smedium knife. It's kind of subjective to knives that I like that are in my collection. And we're going to start off with the Emerson Mini A100. This is a knife that I did not know I was interested in. I had my first experience with it at Blade Show in 2022 at the Emerson booth. It's not a knife that's readily available. It's very unique in terms of it being a neutral handle, very much a working knife. I think it's designed for hard use. I think it's designed to do some things that a lot of these other knives may be more finesse cutters. The one thing I modded on this is I went to the Emerson website and I picked up the skull clip. This is an Emerson clip. Another interesting thing about this knife is now I forget what they call the grind, but you'll notice that it's got a bevel on this side, but a flat on this side. So it's not a chisel grind per se, but it is a very unique grind. It operates on washers. It's got the thumb disc. I cannot reverse finger flick this knife. I just can't get any room in there, but you've got the room here to thumb flick it. I think you could even front flip this knife. Yeah. And with its unique grind, it is very slicey. And again, I don't look at this as a paper cutter, necessarily a cardboard breaker downer, but I look at it kind of as a multi-purpose, small size or medium, hard use knife. I think if we look at all these knives, this is probably going to have one of the thickest grinds, thickest blade stocks of any of them. So coming in at number 10, we have the Emerson Mini A100, which brings us to number 9. And number 9 is a knife that I actually picked up at Blade Show in 2022. This is the Wii Mini Malice button lock. What I can tell you about this knife is when I saw it at the Wii booth and started to flip it, it's got a detent. I don't know how. But when I started to play with it, I instantly fell in love with it. I love the grip. I love the thinness of the blade, and the action is next level. It's got a traditional flipper, if you like to flip your knives, and then it's got this fuller that you can get into and reverse finger flick it. This is kind of the copper toned titanium, and then it's got a, I don't know if it's 20 CV, fair and forged design. I think it's 20 CV, guys, but I don't remember. It is screaming sharp. And it fits that medium size, which for me, in my hand, it's not a tiny knife. It's not a 5th pocket carry knife. It could definitely be, and they are primary carry knives, but it's just on the smaller side. So coming in at number 9, we have the Wii Mini Malice. Great knife. Which brings us to number 8. This is a knife we saw in our Warncliffe Sheep's Footy video, so I won't spend a lot of time on it. But my 3-inch Hinderer XM18s, I have 2 of them. They're both on this list. They are kind of the pinnacle, in my opinion, of a Smedium sized knife that I know is going to perform. The Warncliffe is 20 CV. It's full titanium because I bought the show side handle. It's a frame lock knife, has a flipper tab, has a tri-way pivot system, which right now it's running on bearings. I could put it on Teflon washers or on phosphorus bronze washers. It does have a little lanyard loop or lanyard hole, has nice jimping, gives you a great back grip, fantastic forward grip. The choils on all of these knives, with the exception of maybe 1, 2, are outstanding. And this guy, again, a little thicker behind the grind than some of the ones we'll look at, but a very able cutter, poker, detail cutter. Just a fantastic made in America knife that I really, really like. The only modifications this one's had made to it is simply that show scale swap out, but this is the Hinderer 3-inch Eclipse in a Warncliffe. Coming in, I think, what was that, number 8? Yeah, so this would be number 7. And when I was looking at medium sized knives, as you guys know, TRM is probably my favorite USA manufacturer. I love the knives. I was looking at the Nerd, which I think of as more of a 5th pocket knife, and the Neutron, this knife here, I originally thought of as not as much of a medium knife, just a medium knife, till I started looking at it against some of the others, because I also have an Atom, which would be a medium large knife, full size. But the TRM Neutron is probably the TRM that I carry the most because of its size. It's a 20 CV blade, has some of the thinnest blade stock, and unlike the other knives we've been cutting with, this is one of those therapeutic cutting knives that I can just sit for hours and chop paper. It's great for breaking down cardboard. It's great for anything that you need except maybe batoning through wood for an EDC slicer. I think TRM does it better than anybody. I love the people at TRM. I love their knives. This knife operates on washers. It's a very simple construction. It is a liner lock, and it fits my hand like a glove, and it is definitely one of my top medium knives. And again, these aren't in really numerical order, but we're going to call this one number 7, which brings us to number 6. Guys, this knife should be much higher on the list. I've got some bangers coming up, but this knife is one of the biggest surprises that I did not even know about until probably 4 months ago. Now, I knew about Ware knives. I follow Ware on Instagram. I'm a huge, huge fan of his custom work. Probably his most popular model is the Alip, which is, this is a production version of that little Alip. If you go to his Instagram page and you look at some of the custom variations of not just the Alip, but other knives that he's made, you'll see that he is a very special maker. But what he decided to do was a run of these Alip as through a production company. I want to say Best Tech, maybe Riot, but I think it was Best Tech that he OEM'd on to do a small run of these and called it the Alip PE. I think they sold out on his site at least almost immediately. I think they're still available, a few at Smoky Mountain Knife Works and maybe a couple of other retailers. If you just Google Wehr, W-E-H-R, Allie, A-L-L-I-E, and then -P for production. This knife is a hollow ground, beautiful M390 thumb stud deployment. They also make this with a micarta inlay. I wanted the satin blade, so by the time I got to the party, everything was sold out except the raw titanium in the satin blade. But I really like this configuration. It has a black pivot collar, a black stud, black clip, and black hardware, and it's just raw tie. Guys, the D10 on this knife is cash money. It is built and feels like a tank. I love the look. It looks like nothing else I have. I love the way it carries in my pocket. And even though it's a little thicker knife and has what I would call a little toothier grind on it, it is a therapeutic cutter. I listen to sounds, and you can tell just by looking at the cuts that the grit on this edge is not as keen as on some of the others. In terms of, it could probably go, I would say it's probably 500-600 grit, maybe more. I don't know anything about that. But it's not as refined of an edge as the TRM. Not a bad thing. It's just the way I think that the hollow grind is a little bit more than half here, and you've got some thicker blade stock. For example, the TRM that I was just laser beaming through starts with a much thinner stock, and then that tall flat grind is going to make this knife much more thin behind the edge than some of these others. But anyway, the Alip PE is an absolute winner. It's a knife that I don't think a lot of people are aware of. And again, it's a knife that is a Smedium knife. So for a hand like mine, it's what I would consider perfect. But for my buddy A to Z EDC, who's a bigger guy, the knife's way too small for him. So it wouldn't even be an option for him. But this is one that's one of my top Smedium knives. And this is the Wehr Knives Alip PE. And I want to say this is coming in at number 6. Let's see, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Yeah, this is number 6, which brings us to number 5. And number 5 is another Hinderer 3-inch XM18. And this one is one of my only Hinderers that I've not been able to find the Battle Black or the Battle Black show side scale for. So I picked up a black micarta. However, this knife has more sentimental value in my collection than almost any other. There are a couple things. First, this is the first Hinderer that I ever handled. Nashville Blade Show 2 years ago. My brother, buddy, good friend, Dark Gravity, had it in his collection. We were meeting in the parking deck after Blade Show, and we were all kind of going through each other's knives. I'll be honest with you, when I first picked it up, I didn't get it. It wasn't my style. I went back and looked at other knives in his collection. Didn't think much more about it. We were talking a couple of weeks later, and he said, this was actually right before Blade Show 2022, I think. And he said, look, John, I don't think you really, because I've been looking for a Hinderer, and I was thinking about getting a 3.5 inch. And he said, you really need to carry the 3-inch Hinderer, my little Skinner blade Hinderer, which is a rare one, and just see if it grows on you. You know, see what you think. He goes, I'm willing to sell it, but you don't have to buy it. I just want you to check it out. So I carried it to Blade Show in Atlanta, carried it for about a week, probably about 10 days, and it instantly started to grow on me. I realized the different grips. I realized the difference in the scale thickness and the blade stick thickness between the 3-inch and the 3.5 inches. And long story short, I fell in love with the knife. I talked to Dark Gravity. We worked something out. He made me a great deal on it. It has a tan, or I don't know if you call it, I think it's tan, Coyote G10 scale was what it came from the ranch with. I swapped it out at first for a red micarta scale. Then I found this black micarta scale that was textured, and I went with it, and it stayed on the knife. I almost bought one off Etsy from a custom maker. It was almost as much as the Hinderer scale, but it was a checkered pattern where part of it looked as dark as this, but part of it was lighter. I just couldn't. I'm just going to wait till I can find a Hinderer scale, a black Hinderer scale. But yeah, guys, this knife is 20 CV. It's the Skinner blade, which I don't see very often. It is probably my favorite Hinderer, and it's definitely, without a doubt, my most one of my most sentimental knives. It'll be a forever knife. It means a lot to me, and for a Smedium knife, I could recommend it to anybody. I love this knife, and it is coming in, I think we said at number 5, which brings us to number 4, which came in this year, and this is my first experience with a premium Spartan Blade Works Harsey 3.25 inch. Now, I had the Spartan Talos field grade, and I have the Spartan Aster field grade that are in CTS HXP, and the Talos is exactly the same size as this 3.25 inch little Harsey. I actually, so much so that this past Friday made the little Talos the giveaway knife, the standard giveaway knife. But what attracted me to this knife is the theme. So this is the Plague Doctor, and this is something that means a lot to me because it's when my whole knife thing really started around COVID. So this knife, the Plague Doctor, if y'all know anything about the Plague Doctor, Google him. He's been around for 100 years. But it says on here, do not fear, my dear. You've got on the back, you've got our little familiar bugs. We know what those are. And then on the 3.25 inch, you've got the Spartan logo, instead of being in the blade, is stamped into the scale. And you've got the USA stamped into the scale. This little guy is in S45 VN. I picked up a 4-inch in MagnaCut in the same colorway to complete my set. But this little knife is on washers. It is small. It is tactical. It is thick. But it is a fantastic little knife that I'm always proud to carry. I get a lot of use out of it, opening packages, cutting through rope, paracord, you name it. This is a little more hard use knife. It's also a fantastic Slurpee saver. But coming in at number 4, primarily because it was the first one that I brought into my collection, I didn't think I'd be able to find and afford the pattern, which was the Plague Doctor, and sure enough, it worked out. And again, I really like it. I have a feeling this will be one of my few forever knives. Again, because the motif and the time that this was made, the time that this design came out, was kind of the time that my hobby really kicked off, starting with Civivs, CRKTs, just like everybody. I was buying and collecting a ton of budget knives, shifted somewhere because of Dark Gravity, give me some advice, and started, instead of buying so much frequency, started just buying the knives that I really wanted. Which brings us to number 3. And again, these are in no numerical order. This knife could easily be my number 1 Smedium knife, as could almost any of these. But this is the EMP EDC, one of my favorite global makers, John and Jamie. I love them as human beings. I love the designs that they do. And this is a knife that I was late to the game on. I waited till the V2. This is the Nimble T V2. So I had an original Nimble. I bought the Nimble X when it came out. I had a thick boy. I did not buy the Wharncliffe, and I did not buy the Tonto because, in my opinion, which I hadn't handled them yet, I was thinking that they were basically just a different blade style from a knife that I loved. And I was buying other things. Fast forward to Blade Show 2023, and I spent a good time at the EMP EDC booth, and I handled a lot of the knives, like the Relative, like the Ronin, like the Nimble T, like the Prototype Pulses, and I realized that this was more than just a Tanto blade on a Nimble. It has what I consider to be very noticeable refinements, and this is purely subjective, but this is what I've noticed. So the first generation Nimble, of course, had the frag, which I think you could get. This has a dimpled kind of octagonal pattern. For some reason, and I'm sure it's just after you've done a knife a few times, you come up with ways to make it better. That just is product improvement, right? But the detent on this knife, my Nimble, OG Nimble, is perfect. Something about this knife feels more solid. It feels more premium. It deploys more snappily. It is, in all ways, and the tip is not that aggressive of a Tonto, but it's a very functional Tonto. It is, to me, better in almost every way. And I can't tell you why. I can just tell you when I have my OG Nimble and I'm comparing it to my Nimble T, there is a difference. Now, is that difference night and day? Absolutely not. But when I'm looking at Smedium knives, because these are exactly the same size, I love my OG Nimble. I don't know if it's the scales. Something about the Nimble T sets it on another level. And I love this knife. I love EMP EDC. I want to apologize to them because I did a video yesterday on my top Wharncliffe sheep's foot, and I was showing the OTF Pulse. And I started out talking about John and Jamie, EMP EDC, and somehow my brain, at the end of going over that knife, started talking about Urban EDC. Guys, I'm brain dead. It's an EMP EDC. I throw sentences, make up words, do all kinds of crazy shit. But anyways, this is my number 3, my top 10 Smedium knives. It's the Nimble T V2. I can highly recommend it. I love it. It is absolutely outstanding. So moving on, we come to the only automatic on this list. That's right, guys. I have been bit by the Strider bug. I'm not going to go into detail because it's been a huge pain in my ass dealing with it. But I picked up a knife from Ethan Grow on Amazon that shall remain nameless that actually sparked or piqued my interest in Spartan knives. So I started out, this is the first one I picked up. This is this Protek Spartan PT27 in a textured handle. This is the smaller of the Spartan sized knives. So this is definitely a Smedium sized knife in my opinion. It is a one-hand knife. It thunders open. The blade steel on this one is Magna Cut. So this is a blacked out Magna Cut with a textured handle. It is the PT207, which has the same body shape and overall styling as the SNG Protek Strider, which I also picked up on a trade. And I'll let you guys know, kind of as a spoiler, my first big boy real Strider should be here Monday or Tuesday. Brother Scotch and Things helped me find one, and I have now taken the plunge. So all of you haters, and I say this jokingly, on my F and Grow EF225 investigative journalism, if you want to call it that, i.e. clone what I would think of a Strider. I picked up that $69 knife, talked about it just to share my thoughts with the community, and after experiencing that knife, I have now picked up the 207, the S&G, and my first real Strider S&G, and I'm sure it's not my last. So I love this knife. I'm not a huge automatic guy. I think I have 5 in my collection. 2 of them are Protek Striders. It's a knife that carries great. It's a knife that works great. It's tactical yet functional, and I really, really like it. As I try to close it under the camera, not the best thing, because I don't want to cut myself. But coming in at number 2, that is the Protek PT27. One of the biggest surprises, and I say that a lot, I did not expect to like this knife. I expected to like it. I did not expect to love it. I did not expect it to be a holy shit knife. Why would it? It was one of those knives that has been around for quite a while. I'd heard some good and bad. One of the things that really struck me was I remember when Brother Cole, Tri-State, reviewed his. I don't exactly remember what all his issues were. I don't know if they were lockup issues, if they were centering issues, if they were action issues, but he did not like this knife. So when I bought it at full price, because this was not on sale around Black Friday, I want to say it was $310. It was one of the variations that was available, which is this kind of bronzy, I almost call it black brown because I'm colorblind, textured tie handle with a smooth frame lock clip side. This is one of their Ocean Series knives. So the blade is Vanex Stonewash. So this knife is allegedly completely waterproof, rust proof. It's got a wire clip, but you could also put a lynch clip on it. The way the regular drift fits my hand blew me away. I did not expect it to be such a comfortable knife. The other thing I did not expect it to be was such a thin package, not just in blade stock, but an overall carry package. This knife is on washers. This knife is spent almost every day in my pocket for a little while, if not for the whole day, because it's so minimal. And guys, it is a therapeutic cutter. It is much slicier than I expected it to be. I need to compare it to my 9 because my 9 is very slicey, but this might be my sliciest quiet carry. And again, I judge it based on sound, resistance going through the paper, the finished edges that it leaves on the paper. I tried to turn it too far. I was trying to turn it all the way back, and it didn't happen. But, and one of these days, guys, y'all are going to get to see me just whack the tip of my finger off doing this. So stay tuned for at least that. Well, you can't see it, it's off camera, but I've got a little blood spot there. But yeah, guys, the quiet carry drift, they also make a large drift, or I think it's called a large drift, and they've made some modifications with a blade hole. They've done several new things, but this is the OG drift, and this is a knife that does it for me. I just absolutely freaking love it. So this is going to come in, and again, these aren't necessarily in numerical order. I just wanted to kind of get them out there for you guys to see them. Because it's really, when I look at my collection, and these videos, they don't take long to shoot, but I have to really think about what I'm trying to represent in my collection, because mine's a little different. I'm not having knives sent and telling you which ones are the best that I've had sent to me. These are knives that I seek out, that I buy, or I trade for, that I live with, right? So I wanted to make sure that I'm not leaving out stuff that I feel like should be brought to your attention. And when I say brought to your attention, all these reviews are very subjective. They're my kind of jams. but it's valid, and it may be some of your guys' jams. I don't know. I hope so. I'm sure y'all are familiar with a lot of these knives, but let's just move that one out. Put that one in, the A100, and then we'll move our TRM to get one last look at our Warncliffe Hinderer. And guys, that is my 10 Smedium Sized knives. Thank you, Christine, Peter, Women Carry Knives, and a Therapeutic Edge. I've not asked you if I could use your Smedium term, but I've adopted it. I try to always give you credit for it, Christine. I love you guys. Each and every one of you, thank you for coming by and checking out my content. I hope you found it somehow entertaining, informative. I love each and every one of you. All I ask is please look out for the guy or gal to your left. Please look out for the guy or gal to your right. Please look out for each other. Go forward with love in your heart. Choose debate, not hate. I love you all. Peace.